A professional counselor in the Dallas area is growing in popularity for his treatment methods.
How do you talk to kids about terror? And with social media and television, it's everywhere, and it's unavoidable for kids.
Rusty Lozano is the founder of the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy. He's also been nationally recognized for his work with brain mapping.
He's created a gym to work out the mind. His office features an obstacle course.
Rusty Lozano is a licensed professional counselor, helping children with headaches, with anxiety, ADHD, and more.
Here's where Lozano comes in. He teaches kids how to think their pain away with something called biofeedback.
A North Texas therapist is treating patients in this unconventional way.
We have Rusty Lozano who's joining us today. He's a licensed professional counselor.
He put together an unusual treatment for teenagers who are struggling with mental issues, except he's taking this now a step further.
Rusty Lozano, a leading therapist and pediatric biofeedback therapist based in Texas at the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy. And Rusty, thanks for being with us tonight.
Rusty Lozano, a father of 4 and also a professional counselor in Texas, says it's all about being a credible resource to your children.
The Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, your dedicated resource for mental health news, views, and tips you can use. Brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas. And now, here's Rusty.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Therapy Hour, brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon. The weather is just now coming in, and first day of spring. Couldn't be a better day with sun outside and beautiful things to look at. You know, in my practice, I come across a population of kids from time to time in counseling that really the circumstances kind of stay with me. What are these kids dealing with these days? How tough is school? What are the pressures that they're experiencing? And how different it seems than the times that I actually experienced being a kid growing up. You know, it's the same game, but a lot of the circumstances have changed. The amount of stress that they experience and how they cope with it. You know, the whole electronic era hasn't really helped either, because, you know, when you're dealing with situations with other kids, usually it's dealt with in person, or it could actually, linger on for a few days and then it wears off. But with cyber circumstances, things stick around. So there are a lot of snags that these kids are experiencing these days that can actually trigger a tremendous amount of stress, frustration, anger, emotional instability. And so, you know, I brought my guest on today, and I'm really excited about this guy. He's actually one of my heroes, my Sunday night heroes that I watch television with my son. But I'm going to read to you a little bit about who he is. So I wrote up this little segment here. Ever wonder what it takes to cope on Discovery Channel's Naked and Afraid? Could your frustration tolerance, teamwork, and resiliency hold up in extreme circumstances? Our guest today, Discovery Channel's E.J. Snyder, mastered these skills under the toughest circumstances. In Tanzania, Africa, the Amazon in Peru, and the Amazon in Colombia. In fact, on one of these shows, he actually came in as a backup because a lot of the players actually left the game, and this guy's tough as nails. I want to define a few things as we get into the show, because there are core messages that I want to focus on. Teamwork. Let's define teamwork. The APA is the American Psychological Association. It defines teamwork as a cooperation between those who are working on a task. Teamwork is generally understood as the willingness of a group of people to work together to achieve a common aim. For example, we often use the phrase, he or she is a good team player. Let's define resiliency. Again, from the APA, resilience is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress, such as family, relationship problems, serious health problems, or workplace and financial stressors. It means bouncing back, people, and being able to kind of withstand stress, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going. With adolescents experiencing the stress of school, homework, SATs, grades, peer pressure, bullying, cyberbullying, home life, stress, suicidal ideation. How can kids cope? So welcome today, my guest, E.J. Snyder, and our segments are, the first segment we're going to talk about what is Naked and Afraid? What is the show? What are the rules? The second segment is teamwork and the examples of teamwork that E.J. is going to share with us. Then the third segment is on resiliency and examples of resiliency. And then the fourth, we're going to get to know E.J. Snyder and get to talk to him a little bit. So, E.J., thank you for joining us this afternoon. How are you today?
Hello?
You there, E.J.? How you doing?
Oh, yeah, I got you. What's going on?
Not much. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, no, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you reaching out and me getting to share my story with you a little bit and answer any questions anybody might have about me.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you and I had a pretty interesting conversation the other night, and we started out talking about the show, and there were a few things that I picked up on with you, and you had just some amazing things to share about your experience and like what guided you through some of those really difficult times. But first, let's kind of set up, what is the show Naked and Afraid?
Okay, well, Naked and Afraid is a concept that Discovery Channel got behind, and basically it's putting two people out to their most vulnerable and most primitive state in a survival situation, and basically just kicking us back 10,000 years to where a strange man, a strange woman meet for the first time in some wild and exotic location. They take away everything you have in life, your clothes, your shoes, basically your dignity, and give you one survival item each, and basically you meet for the first time out there in the wild. So strategically they do some tests that you go through, and inevitably they pair you up with probably somebody that, one, you're just not going to get along with or is completely opposite of you, so that they add to the stress of other conflicts of dealing with human nature. Because sometimes surviving the wild is easier than surviving people. And you got to make it 21 days, and on this 21st day you're supposed to be standing with whatever the extraction point is designated, whether it's on top of a mountain, near a trail, or out in the ocean somewhere.
So you've never met any of these people before. You really don't. I mean, do you know your location? Do you know where you guys are going to be dropped off?
Each time it's pretty secretive, and then eventually they let you know about where you're going. And like you're saying, we're talking about the regular series, which is just Naked and Afraid 21 days. They do have what they call the XL series, which is actually 40 days, and it's 12 people that have completed the challenge or been part of the challenge before. And so basically, for me, the first time I went, I was the very first show ever filmed. We were a pilot. It was a working pilot, and they told me, hey, you're going out to East Africa. I said, okay, great, East Africa. Yeah, that's like 17 different countries that are as diverse as Hawaii is to Alaska. So they got a little bit more specific towards Tanzania about a week and a half out, and then I got to focus my study in on the Tanzania. But Tanzania itself is equally diverse, depending where you're at, whether it's Mount Kilimanjaro, down in the Unagaro crater, it just depends.
So and then the way it's set up is you're dropped off, you meet somebody for the first time, and then there's no real objective, there are no rules, there are no instructions, so you have to use your instinct and your skills to actually set up and get set up, figure out how you're going to either bed down. What's the first priority? I always see that.
Yeah, for me, my brand of survival is to go anywhere in the world, get dropped off with no notice. It doesn't matter where you drop me off. You can tell me or you don't have to tell me, and I'll be able to make it through that situation with my brand of survival. And I have my survival brand and style is adaptable to absolutely any environment, any terrain, and to put that into high speed. Now, for me, doing things primitively is, I know how to do them. I've trained it. I'm a survival instructor. I teach it. But it's not a super strong suit of mine. I'm a self-reliance guy. I'm an old military guy, 25-year retired Army combat vet. And so I like gear. I like having things. Personally, I think if you go out into the wild without a lighter or a fire starter backup in your pocket, you're basically stupid. But, I know people get into starting fire by sticks, and it's very magical and all that, but I, for one, am about being prepared. So if you drop me off with just a knife, and a lot of people talk about doing it with just a knife, it's very difficult. So it took me way out of my comfort zone and really tested me to see what I was made of deep inside, which is a strong will, a positive attitude, and a determination that just won't quit. And so here you are, dropped off in the middle of nowhere, and you're, like you said, just out there with you and your partner. And then all of a sudden your partner becomes probably one of your best survival tools and assets, as I was to her. And, you rely on each other. And through teamwork, the situation's much better. So we talk about survival priorities. So let's just picture this. You're dropped off in the middle of the Serengeti in Tanzania, a vast savanna with wild animals, lions, Cape buffalo, hyenas, hippos, elephants, all kinds of creatures out there. And for me, as a military guy, always in a survival situation, my first priority is security. Get me a spear in my hand, something long, so I get some distance between me and whatever's trying to eat me. And so that's, for me, always my first priority. And then the other survival priorities depend on what is the greatest need. That could be shelter, it could be water, food, or fire. And in some cases, if let's say you were actually in a plane crash or something like that, first aid will definitely jump to the top of the list if anybody's hurt.
Wow. We're talking, if you're just joining us, we're visiting with E.J. Snyder from the Discovery Channel's Naked and Afraid. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages.
Guns mean different things to different people. For some, when they think guns, they think crime. For others, guns mean hunting, recreational shooting, or competition. Many men and women see guns as the key to protecting their families. Hi, I'm Tom Gresham, host of Gun Talk. No matter how you feel about guns, you now have a place to talk about it. Join me Sundays, 1 to 4 p.m. on Talk Radio 1190.
Your gut. It's your engine, your digestive core. Keep it running smoothly with the powerful digestive support of Ultimate Flora. It's the probiotic that works hard, with 30 billion live cultures to help restore your body's good natural flora. Feel lighter, more energized, and happier with the high-potency probiotic. Ultimate Flora by Renew Life. More power to your gut. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Spend $24 right now at Napa, and you can get a free Napa Chase Elliott racing cap. Buy $24 of oil, get a free cap. Buy $24 of headlamps, get a free cap. Buy $24 worth of Pine Tree scented air fresheners. Well, we won't ask you why you need $24 worth of air fresheners. We'll just hand you a free Napa Chase Elliott racing cap. That's Napa know-how. At participating Napa Auto Parts stores while supplies last. Offer expires 3/31/16.
I moved to Boston when I was 2. There was 14 of us in a 4-bedroom apartment in the projects in Boston. To be the first, kid to buy a house in my family. I just realized that. I'm the first kid to buy a house. It's a very proud moment.
Home means something different to everyone. With millions of homes for sale or rent on Zillow, whatever home means to you, Zillow can help you find it.
In small towns and big cities around the world, Habitat for Humanity volunteers gather. Hammers are raised, bricks are laid, and another family finds shelter in a home they help build. Habitat volunteers are changing lives for the better, and in the process, maybe even their own as well. Support the work in your community or wherever your heart leads you. Volunteer, get involved, and help build it. Visit us at habitat.org.
You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
We are back, and if you're just joining us, we have E.J. Snyder from the Discovery Channel's Naked and Afraid, and we're going to talk about teamwork this segment. E.J., I've watched your show. I've watched all 3 of those episodes. The one, it's the Man Against the Amazon show, where you came in as the alternate. You and Laura came in as an alternate because none of the players could take the environment. I also watched the Tanzania show and then the XL show. And, one of the things that was really impressive I found just super impressive about you is that you were really resourceful. I mean, you were making baskets to carry your gear in. You and Jeff on the XL show, you had like a tool rack. You had things set up. I mean, you were super resourceful. So it made me think, okay, what's going through this guy's mind? It's so different. I mean, how can with all the things that are going on around him? I mean, even you getting jolted by an electric eel just to survive and have a food source, and then you bounce back. But you're working with others, and like your ability to kind of to deal with the stress as you're trying to survive and bring all of these elements together. That brings a different component, a different concept of teamwork. I mean, you're being thrown in together with somebody else you don't know, and you assume they have some survival skills. And, I've actually seen you guys, like you, when you're on the show, you kind of rate like how good the other person is according to like what tool they chose. And so you were talking about the bow, the bow fire starter. When it comes to teamwork, what was teamwork like for you when you were working under those circumstances? And let's talk about the XL challenge, because you had several individuals. You had two camps essentially. It was you, Jace, you, Jeff, and Shane were all together at one point.
Right.
What was that like?
Well, for me, I have a plethora of leadership experience being in the military and dealing with all kinds of people, different backgrounds, different races, different creeds, different religions. I grew up in North Jersey outside New York City, so I was used to dealing with different people. And as I raised in the ranks in the Army, then I became a leader, and then really had to be a counsel for people and get to learn personalities and different things. And leadership's about getting people to do things for a common goal and doing it in harmony, or in some cases you have to move pieces separately and put your best people where they'll do the most good for the overall completion of the mission. Mm-hmm. And so but what I have learned is with civilians, you can't necessarily be militaristic in your leadership approach. So I had to I was the oldest person out there at 49, and I had to take all my wisdom and years of leadership experience and deal with people that are all A-type personalities, all strong personalities, all strong-willed in their own ways, and all dedicated to their own brand of survival and upbringing. So that's not easy when you throw, all 12 forces into one tornado, so to speak, and then you add in a little stress, hunger, and everything else, and it gets kind of crazy. So I diligently tried to work relationships, for me personally, I can't speak for anybody else out there, on an individual basis, and try to get to know everybody, understand what made them tick, maybe see if I could figure out maybe what really set them off so I wouldn't do that. And knowing who's around you, knowing your environment's part of that. And, I'm a workhorse, so I stay busy. I don't expect anyone to keep up with my level of energy or my work ethic or what I do. But I do know when you're in a survival situation, even while I was in the military, you always improve your position, whether it's your shelter or where you're at. And I was always working into the night around the fire, building things, making things. I mean, I'm a total package survivalist now. I pride myself in being able to do things in the primitive manner, in modern day, self-reliant. Mm-hmm. I'm a self-defense guy. That means hand-to-hand and weapons, as well as alternative energies, so to speak, living off the grid. I don't like the term prepper. And so for me, I was out there for 40 days. I wanted to get as much out of it and hone my skills as possible, not because I was going on TV or showing things. It's because, one, we needed to so we could live, and two, these skills I was mastering and improving on were going to be useful to me down the road for whatever God has ahead. So, but people can be very difficult, and I know I was equally as difficult towards the end. You get hungry, and for me, I get hangry.
Yeah, your comfort level's compromised. I mean, it's when somebody isn't putting their part in or they're not contributing, that has a direct effect on you. So that means that you have to have some degree of communication. That means you have to kind of work together. I mean, how do you divvy up, that perspective? How do you tell the other person in a polite? Is there a polite way to do it?
Well, you have to have exercise an immense amount of patience with individuals, and you hope that they're doing the same with you. But it can get a little irritating after a while. It's like we're working hard here, and in some people's mind, they believe they're loyal to their strategy, which is lower energy. You don't need as many calories, perhaps. Wait it out, whatever the theory is. Both styles, the aggressive style and the more methodical approach, both worked. We all got out of there, but it's just something I don't understand, and I just, I surrounded myself with like-minded folks. We were there for 40 days, but our strategy was let's act like we're going to be here 40 weeks, and that help isn't coming.
Yeah.
And then that way we knew that we would be okay. And, I've watched other people operate. I just couldn't operate in the manners in which they were operating. It just, if you go against your true nature, I find that it causes you to hesitate and causes more problems. And in my business, and I understand out there it's not war, but it kind of is. It's you against Mother Nature and the environment to succeed, and I wanted to dominate the environment out there and be the apex predator, and I think we accomplished that. But when you're dealing with people that are like myself, we were very hungry. I lost 73 pounds out there. You're malnutritioned. You're not sleeping as well as you think. You're stressed. There are puma and jaguar in the area that could eat you.
Those are real stressors.
Yes, and so when people are under that amount of stress, their true character starts to boil to the top, and then you have to understand that we're all going through something very tough here, and dealing with people at that point and trying to have a logical thought process is very difficult. So you have to keep things at their very basic level.
So we're all going through this together. Let's be patient. Let's respect each other's differences and keep the like-minded objective in mind, and let's work towards that.
And it's complex stuff because when you're trying to put thoughts together to help, to have people understand what you're thinking and what your thought process is and why you're making the decisions you are, and you try to explain it, it doesn't always come out the way you intended it because you step on your words because you're just not thinking clearly. And then people can get a little personally hurt, and that's not what we're out there to do.
Yeah, I mean that's where the patience comes from.
We're out there on Excel. We're all friends, and prior to this, so it really tests a lot of things on many levels.
Yeah, I'm sure because if there's a limited amount of resources, and then there are several people that need those resources, but then also you need them, that takes a tremendous amount of discipline in being able to kind of curtail like your survival instinct to kind of make room for somebody else. Yeah. That's what I think is super impressive about you, EJ, is that you mastered that. I mean, you're tough as nails. I can tell just by talking to you, like how strong you are. But you also have this ability to kind of, even in the face of that, I saw you just transform, and it's like is an ongoing evolution that you kind of evolved with the circumstances. Okay, here comes another guy. It was you and Jeff. Yeah. Here comes Shane, and here comes another one of the girls, and then you guys weren't the first ones that didn't divvy up the food. In fact, like it was another camp that made it so that they were keeping food. You guys found out they weren't sharing, and so all of a sudden, like you're faced with this situation. Jeff went in and he caught this big old giant, like 5-foot eel, and here comes the other camp, and it's enough to feed the entire camp. And that was a tough call for him to be able to kind of say, I wanted EJ to be here. This is no respect, and I think he handled it really well. But no disrespect. This is a teamwork. This is a team thing, and so he had to turn them away. But that's because fair is fair, and like they didn't invite you guys in some of those situations. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on out there. I mean, one of my favorite things was trading with the others because it's, that's back what they used to do tens of thousands of years ago, trade for things. And that wasn't really shown a lot on the show. Mm-hmm. And they told a story, and it was what it was. And in our heart, you feed others. It's not in my heart to turn somebody away from my table at home.
Right.
And I could only eat so much of the protein as it was. It would have, there was no way to properly smoke it where we were at. We didn't have the right materials to set up a good smoker.
Right. And I saw that you guys did actually end up sharing that meal, and those are difficult. Those are difficult calls to make. I mean, that goes back to moral fiber. Like who are you as a person? And okay, this is the circumstance. It tests you. And can you still keep your integrity even under these circumstances? And you guys proved time and time again that you're able to.
Thank you. And in group survival, everyone has to put their resumes on the table, and there's no room for egos, and you have to look at it and say who is most qualified to lead the largest group of people. And what I saw in front of me as a leader, I had to make some decisions, and we had some circumstances going on that certain individuals couldn't be with others, and it was better to keep them apart for the time being. And based on information I was receiving, I was making determinations in my head what was best. But sometimes people don't realize they need to be led, but they're not very receptive, like I said, to like maybe a more structured, organized, militant style of work distribution. And if it went against their strategy, then it was probably not going to be it wouldn't have been a good situation. And so we just tried to operate as we would. And sometimes you have to come back and we made rules, and there were rules about if you get a big kill, maybe we'll share that with the group because it's way too much meat. As much as hungry as you are, you just have a 6-foot eel is way too much meat for 3 guys to eat.
Right.
It was enough for everybody. And so we had a big kill. If you got a big kill, then you shared it. And so that was my question about the Ray. How big was it? Because there were some really big ones out there.
Well, here's what we're going to do. I want to pause you real quick. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages. E.J. Snyder from Naked and Afraid. Be right back.
For more than 2 decades, the law offices of Frankel & Frankel have been representing those who've been injured by careless and ignorant corporations. Mark Frankel, Scott Frankel, and Jean Burkett are attorneys and counselors that believe you need an advocate that understands your loss, they can clearly explain the law, and persevere in the pursuit of justice. Every year in May, D Magazine publishes the results of their Best Lawyers survey, which are chosen by other attorneys. Mark Frankel, Scott Frankel, and Jean Burkett were named to the Best Lawyers in Dallas again. Part of what sets Frankel & Frankel apart is they prepare every case for trial. They bring in specialists, medical experts to strengthen their client's case. Let Frankel & Frankel represent you when you get into a car wreck. Call 1-800-LAWYERS. That's 1-800-LAWYERS. Or go online. The website is courtroomwarriors.com. It's the law offices of Frankel & Frankel.
Call 1-800-LAWYERS for personal injury and bankruptcy cases. Frankel & Frankel, proud supporters of the Russ Martin Show Listeners Foundation.
Do you have to worry about identity theft during tax season? Yes. The IRS has reported over $6 billion in fraudulent refunds in a single tax year due to identity theft. Does it matter if you're not getting a refund? No. Thieves can use the information from your tax documents to steal your identity anytime. Can getting a neck massage make worrying about identity theft less stressful? Yeah. Who doesn't like a neck massage? But it won't help like LifeLock can. When you're a LifeLock member, you have access to our team of U.S.-based specialists who know the steps to take to work to resolve identity theft issues during tax season and every other time of year. With LifeLock, identity theft can be less of a pain in the neck. Get LifeLock for peace of mind year-round. Memberships start at $9.99 a month plus applicable taxes. And now you can get 10% off. Go to LifeLock.com and enter promo code NEWS. LifeLock.
You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
We're back, and if you're just joining us, we're visiting with E.J. Snyder from Discovery Channel's Naked and Afraid. This last segment.
If I could close up that last point.
Oh yes, please.
The one thing I was, not happy about what they showed, is that one of my greatest things, like I said, was trading food with the others, and then there was a level of thankfulness, and it was reciprocated. Just wasn't, you didn't see it. The girls brought over some fruit for us to thank us for the amount of food we were sharing. One time, Luke brought us over some ray that another ray they had killed just to give us a taste, and he shared some bone soup with us that he made to just show his gratitude for us sharing it. And so that part of human nature was out there, and I was
this
for
community.
me that's a mirror. That's something I like people to see, because from the first time I've gone out, I've evolved as a man and became a better survivalist each time. Kelly Neitlinger out in Africa, strong-willed woman, determined to show that a woman could stand strong on her own if you just believed in her, and that was amazing to see. And she taught me to slow down in life when I go out there. So when I went out to the Amazon, I implied that same new lesson to myself, and I met Laura Zera, who's one of the best survivalists on the planet from women I've seen, and she's a bush crafter. She's in tune with the earth. So Laura taught me while out in the Amazon to get more in touch with my primal side, and it made me a better survivalist, and I had a more appreciation for the wild and things in it. And if I wouldn't have let go, I think the Amazon would have spit me out. So I was glad to learn that lesson. And then with the bigger group, it's strong people all trying to achieve a common objective. But for me, I'm a nomadic survivalist. I like to go to an area like a locust, consume some resources, and then you've got to move after a while. And so I like to keep on the go, keep seeing places and see new things. And for me to sit for too long, it makes me antsy. After about 2 weeks, I'm ready to move. So 3 weeks each time was a little bit longer than I needed to be there.
Yeah. I see you guys are always moving. Let's go back to that really quick, just on the teamwork aspect. Doesn't that kind of sing loudly to, there's something to appreciate about every single person that there's some difference or some attribute that they have that kind of betters you in a way, or it actually gives you a perspective.
Yeah.
And that's something that, I don't think kids are really taught this too much these days, to kind of look and appreciate everybody's differences. Yeah. In fact, there's that whole teamwork component or that whole perspective that, we all need to, I hang out with this group because they're like me and they dress like me and I associate with these people because they're more like me. But, in essence, like, we're all connected. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people that have that perspective.
Yeah.
I think that's an important message to send.
Yeah. In the military, and the Rangers particularly, we had a saying, one is none, two is one. And so we do everything in the military by, battle buddy. You got to have a partner. It's always better. And experience is so much more enjoyable when you have someone to share it with, that what goes through the suffering with you.
Yeah.
And if you don't team up and don't figure a way to work as a team, it's so much harder, and it's so much easier when you two can come together and become each other's yin and yang. Like with Laura, it was just like all her skill sets complemented my skill sets, where Kelly and I had similar skill sets and still strong-minded. So we had to figure out a way to make that work. And so it's about sacrifice, and sometimes you have to compromise, and sometimes you have to swallow your ego and pride. And me, as a traditional male, I was like, I got to sit in the kitchen a little bit. But, I embrace everything in life, every situation, every challenge is some way I'm going to learn and grow.
Yeah.
And, I was the kind of guy with my will in life, starting very young when I was a kid, from the time my parents divorced very young, and my mom was working 3 jobs and didn't have money to buy great school pants for us. I got a job, 8 years old, largest paper out in town, so I could find a way to buy pants for me and my kid brother so he wouldn't get made fun of. And then I met bullies, and I kept getting bullied as a kid, and I found a way to defend against that situation and get through it. So I've applied the will to survive all throughout my life, not even just the wild situations I've been out there surviving in the wild, but in life. And when you're faced with a challenge, whether it's doing, having some struggles in schoolwork, or having a bully, or you're fighting a life-threatening illness, or there's some challenge, relationship, or something in your life, when I see a wall, I see it. And if I can't go around it, over it, or under it, I'm going right through it. I will find a way to make that challenge a rear-view mirror situation. And when people apply that to their life, it's about mindset.
Let's do this.
Positive mindset with a strong will and good support system behind you, you can get through anything.
That's an amazing message right there. So let's do this. Let's put you in that hut with the mosquitoes, no sleep at night. Resiliency is what we're talking about. Yeah. What do you do? What did you do to get over that night? It only showed us a little segment of you guys, slapping mosquitoes on you. How did you guys deal with that?
That was Laura and I pulled out every stump in the book, and we could not understand how these mosquitoes were kept coming at us. But it was we tried clay, we tried mud, we tried a smoky fire like we always do, a bigger fire, a smaller fire, put termites on us, put the termite mounds in the fire. they just kept coming. And then our shelter was made out of vegetation. So when it was time to go to bed, even the mosquitoes, they'd go sleep in our shelter. And when it was time for a midnight snack, they came out and started eating me and Laura. It literally blew us out of the shelter. We wound up running 300 meters out of the shelter to a spot on the jungle floor underneath this huge rainforest tree. I cut down a bunch of banana leaves, and we covered up in it. And we got up underneath that thing, and it started to drizzle a little bit, and we slept the rest of the night away.
Oh, wow.
About 3 hours.
So you never gave up. I mean, you couldn't give up. I mean, I guess you could. You could have tapped out and said, okay, I can't handle this. That's what the two players did before you. Is they and that tapping out is, folks, if you want to quit the game, you just say I tap out, and then a crew comes in and they'll remove you and take you back to the airport.
It's not in our vocabulary, and actually Laura Zera's the one person I've been on the planet probably more stubborn than I. She would have been. You've had to drag her out in a body bag to get out of there. She would never say I quit. And
so
what we learned. You have to adapt, you have to be flexible, and you have to improvise. And so with the mosquito situation, and there were 10,000 per square foot, no lie, we figured out that night that we needed to start moving camps every 3 days because they would infest after a while. And at night, we would go 300 meters away from our shelter, wait the mosquitoes out because they would only come out for about a half hour to 4 hours, depending on the moon cycle, and we could go back to our shelter and sleep in peace. And so that's what we had to figure out, and Mother Nature was telling us that. We just had to silence ourselves long enough to pay attention to our environment to understand how to get out of that situation.
Wow. And so that takes a tremendous amount of resilience. I mean, and let's talk about the emotional reaction. I mean, was there a point there that you guys did you ever see Laura or yourself? Did you cry? I mean, were you just like, I can't take this? And those are some of the desperation moments that we see with kids that happen these days.
Yeah, you have to support each other and stand each other up. Because if everyone remembers Laura, who was in the first season at Panama, she got destroyed by Chichero sand fleas. So she would always sometimes have a reaction to the mosquitoes. And you saw me the next morning in the river. We would get this little spongy green stuff out of the river, and I'd kind of soothe her back down with them because the bites were pretty bad. But we would sit there and talk to each other, and we would recite the menu, and we'd start with the appetizer, and we'd start with the drinks, and then the salads and the main courses, and we'd go through all the foods that we love to eat, ones we hated, and we'd go through this long list of menus to get our mind off of what was happening to us, and we'd do what we called the mosquito dance, wiping mosquitoes off of us. But we were there for each other, and like I said, going through something that's that terrible, the suck is easier when you're with somebody else, someone supporting you equally. And so the two of us leaned on each other a lot, and it was, that's what you have to do. You have to do that in life. You have to find somebody to help you lean on it because you're strong as an individual. Mm-hmm. When I'm out there on my own in a survival situation, I'm going to take certain risks because if they don't work out well, I'm the only one that's got to pay for it. But when you're with somebody else, you have a responsibility to that person as they do to you. So you can't take the same risks when you're counting on somebody.
So I could see that being like, okay, so you guys actually went and like you were ordering food off a menu and you were taking your mind off of the situation. That would be just as equivalent to going up to somebody and having a conversation and talking about something completely off topic. Get your mind off of it. So those things really do work.
Yes.
EJ, would you say?
Place, as they say.
Yeah, they really do work. And so I think that like removing yourself from the situation, because if you sit and you obsess about your circumstances over and over and over again, it is eventually going to break you down.
And that's a good thing you just mentioned about circumstance. One of the things I practice in my survival brand and strategy is I do not let the situation dictate my actions. I may let my actions dictate the situation, and I use it in everything in life because to me, I'm not about being passive. If I figure out if something's coming at me, I got to figure out some way to move forward and attack it or move forward out of the area or whatever the situation is. So I try to take a positive action to make sure that situation I'm in control, not it.
Yeah. And like,
when you let a situation control you and it controls your brain, then that's when it becomes very easy to tap out there or quit something in life.
Right. Yeah, because it'll consume you, and it's really difficult to find solace and a way out. So I love the idea. I love that concept. I never would have thought that you guys would. And these are things that you don't see about the show, that you were actually healing each other. You were soothing her back with the spongy, green moss from the river. So, that would be equivalent to going up to somebody and asking for help and getting some sort of guidance, and it would be equivalent to that.
Yeah.
And
the biggest lesson for me and Laura was we were both very solid individuals and had a difficult time asking others for help. And I started to figure that out with Kelly, but when I met Laura in the Amazon, the two of us learned that lesson because she had struggles in her life with relationships and whatever, but to be able to lean on somebody, know it's okay to ask for help. And to be that vulnerable to say, hey, I need you, which happened several times in the Amazon to both of us, that it was a great lesson to learn, that it's okay to say, I need some help.
So closing thoughts on this segment would be, tell me if it's a fair thing to say, is that when you're stuck in a situation, you look for help, you actually take your mind off of it, and you keep thinking about a solution. Fair game?
Absolutely, because in a survival situation, I always say, there's always one more thing you can do.
Awesome. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages. E.J. Snyder from the Discovery Channel. Awesome interview.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Rodney Anderson, inviting you to tune into my daily radio show from 11 a.m. to noon on Talk Radio 1190 a.m. Listen in for sound financial advice, and I'll answer all your money questions and more, Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. on Talk Radio 1190.
Your gut. It's your engine, your digestive core. Keep it running smoothly with the powerful digestive support of Ultimate Flora. It's the probiotic that works hard, with 30 billion live cultures to help restore your body's good natural flora. Feel lighter, more energized, and happier with the high-potency probiotic. Ultimate Flora by Renew Life. More power to your gut. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
I don't know about you, but I like choices. Hello, this is Dane Miner, General Manager of Freeman Toyota. And since I'm pretty sure you love choices too, well, you need to come see us. Because at Freeman Toyota, we've got 2 great vehicles for one low monthly payment. Right now, choose from our Toyota Camry LE at $189 a month for 36 months on a lease. Or if an SUV is more your flavor, lease the new RAV4 LE for just $189 a month. It's your choice, car or SUV. And we've made the payment easy at Freeman Toyota. And not just easy, but so good that you might want to get them both. Because at that price, well, you're smart and you know how good that deal is. So come get your new Toyota RAV4 LE or Camry LE and drive away for just $189 a month. I told you you'd love this. Freeman Toyota on the affordable side of the Metroplex at 183 and 820, just south of the Northeast Mall. Call toll-free 1-800-NEW-CARS or log on to freemantoyota.com.
Call 888-973-6483 for lease details.
This is my car. I mean, it's nothing fancy, but it's nice. Gets me to work and to the mall, though it's kind of trash with all my stuff. I swear there must be 30 CDs laying around. And my workout bag. Oh, and my laptop. Like I said, a mess, right? It's perfect. But it's perfect for me. Good gas mileage, and once it's paid off, all mine. All mine. Hey, want to go for a drive? Let me get my purse. Just be a second.
Just takes a second. Where you are, they are. Last year in Texas, car thieves stole roughly 100,000 cars and trucks and burglarized thousands more. They look for anything of value inside, or if you left your keys or failed to lock the doors. When you leave your vehicle, hide your things, lock your car, and take your keys. Remember, you hold the key.
Okay, I'm back. And my car? Where's my car?
This warning from the Texas Auto Burglary and Theft Prevention Authority.
You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
All right, we are back, and you're just joining us. We're visiting with E.J. Snyder from Discovery Channel's Naked and Afraid. So we've discussed teamwork, we've discussed resiliency, and we've heard some really awesome examples. And, you know, just the strength, it just comes out of you, EJ. You're just a really strong individual. Tell us a little bit about, let's go back to like when you were a kid and in the bullying situation, because I think this is something that even you've taken personal cause with in your own life, in your organization. Did you experience a lot of bullying as a kid?
Yeah, I was a very emotional kid, especially when my parents divorced, and I really didn't have too many angerish bones in my body. I liked everybody. I was an easygoing kid, at sometimes shy. And then, when you don't have a dad in your life to figure things out, or he's not in there as often every day, you could go to someone to ask a question about. It became tough. It was tough going to father-son things and not having a dad when you're at scouting or different things like that. So that, I think, opened me up to a vulnerability. And then, like animals sense fear, bullies, they're braver, especially forget about it when they're in a pack like I had. I had a pack of them, about 6 of them. And they see that for them it was a fun game. They liked if you give them a reaction, that's the big thing. And I would give them a reaction. And once I figured out that you got to take that reaction away from them, that's what fuels them. When you take away a bully's fuel, then they have nothing to go on, and it will die out like a fire without air. And at some point, and I don't encourage this to anybody, always seek out help. And I was trying to seek help out with my mom and other people. I just didn't know how to go about it. And at one point, I got pushed so far after about 6 months. I had decided that I was going to make a stand, and I wasn't going to be a target or a victim anymore. And so my mother always told me, if you have a right to defend yourself, and if they get physical with you, you have my permission to defend yourself. And it was like, I was so afraid I was going to get in trouble. Fear is a bad thing. Fear can cripple somebody. Mm-hmm. And so I had this fear of getting in trouble and getting suspended from school. And when my mom said that, then it was like I had her support. Like I remember earlier, I said you have to have this support system in things you do. And so that gave me, I had support. My stepdad had been working with me, teaching me how to box, and I've been learning how to wrestle. And so now I had some skills that I could put to use. And when this day came, the biggest bully shoved me. And I decided, okay, if I make my stance now, and here's the biggest guy, then the rest will hopefully run away. Because you were like taking on the alpha dog. And so that started a fight, which led to the leader of the group, which was a very much smaller guy, decided to jump on me from behind, and then that was it. And so we had this fight, and then they wanted to go out they wanted me to go into the boys' room, which I knew was having a good sense early on that was a bad situation. I was probably going to get jumped. I said, let's go on the playground out in front of everybody because I want everybody to see me standing up to you. That way the whole grade will know that nobody needs to be afraid of you. And that's kind of what happened. And then after that day, they were no longer fueled. And the rest of the grade knew that they didn't have to be worried about these people. And so it kind of was a changing point. But I will say in my life, I've never thrown a first punch unless I was inside a boxing ring or a competition like that or or in combat. But I've thrown a heck of a lot of last punches in terms of I didn't like bullies, and if I saw anybody getting bullied or something like that, I would always go to their aid in some way, whether it was to support them, get them out of the situation, or even in some cases defend them. And nowadays, I know it's so tough for kids because you have social media wide open, Facebook and Twitters and all these things that these kids have to deal with. And I've helped a few kids along the way since I've been on TV that I've had a chance to be a champion about this cause, anti-bullying. Mm-hmm. And I tell them all the time, look, I know it seems like you're out there on an island by yourself, but you're not. You need to talk to someone of authority. If you can't talk to your parents, go to your pastor, go to your teacher, go to somebody. It's not being a snitch, but we're watching these kids that feel they have no alternative, and unfortunately some of the worst situations are happening where these kids are feeling they have no other choice but to harm themselves in some way. Yeah. And that's catastrophic, and that's terrible, and no kid should have to feel that way. So I tell kids all the time, I give out my business card and tell them, look, your parents understand that I'm giving you this card, and here's my email, but only with their permission, or you to contact me and this and that. And when they contact me, I make sure I get with their folks and make sure it's, that they understand that these kids have reached out to me. Usually it's the parents I give the first lead to, and then I try to help them and the parents and try to give some encouraging words and some vehicles to handle it.
Yeah.
And we've had some great work with that, and it's a big problem.
Yeah, it's a tremendous problem. These kids feel, I think that these ideas of going in and hurting somebody else on a massive level, or either hurting themselves, is because they're resorting to being alone and trying to find a solution on their own, and so they're responding and they're reacting out of emotion. And so even like with your own experience, like with you and Laura and you and Jeff and Shane and then the XL crew, you had community, you had people, and it would kind of ground you, because if you make decisions out of emotion, out of an emotional state, out of reacting out of emotion, most likely, those kinds of decisions are not the best ones.
No, if you react out of emotion, whether you don't think logically or you react off emotion, a lot of times you're reacting off a feeling, and it's usually never a good result, and so you should always try to think logically through the situations. What are the pros and cons? What could be the outcomes? What are the consequences if I'm to do a certain action? And in the military, we teach guys to get an abundant amount of information, critical information overload, and very quickly, within 3 seconds, have to make a sometimes life-saving decision that fast. And so I'm blessed with being able to process a lot of information that most normal civilians don't get that opportunity to figure out in life. And so, out there in the survival situation, that stuff comes at you so fast that you have to think fast on your feet, be a little instinctive.
Yeah.
But it's never, when something good happens, you should always send your gratitude. Always be thankful and humble by what's happened.
Yeah, so that's a strong message for sure. EJ, you have programs out there that you actually do. You're a motivational speaker. You also have survival programs.
Yes, sir. I do a lot of motivational speaking. I've been doing a lot of paid appearances in motivational speaking to everything in schools, to corporate functions, to different charity and cause groups. I mean, my message, and I tailor my messages to whatever it is the group thinks they need to hear, and then I relate my own stories to how that, so it's relatable. And so I'm very flexible in doing that. People say, well, what's your message? Can I get a copy of your speech? I'm like, it's all in my head. It's in my heart. Yeah. And I write them basically the night before I go out there once I understand the audience. And so I'm willing and able. You can go to my website, www.ejsnyder.com, which is basically under construction right now. But if you reach out there to the one we have, we'll be able to get at you if you're interested in it. Or you can go to my Facebook page, blue checked EJ Skullcrusher Snyder. We have a book now tab for you if you want to get some more information about the stuff. I do survival training more on a one-on-one level. Like I train groups and I train individuals. I don't really have a school per se, but I do plug and play, go all over the country, bringing my survival brand to everybody. So some other things I'm into right now, I've been writing for a lot of magazines like American Survival Guide, Survivor's Edge, and Survival Quarterly magazines. And so you can get those publications. We just released one this winter 2016, and I wrote a great article in there about Naked Afraid, about a 4-page spread. If you want to follow me, you can go to @EJSnyder333 on Twitter or EJSnyder333 on Instagram. And my YouTube channel, please subscribe to Skull Crusher Survival. And I've always put out positive, motivating messages in there. I talk about survival and gear and all kinds of things. And so I always said that if you ever became known or semi-famous, you have to give back. And I try to spend a lot of time answering all my messages to my fans while I still physically can, because I think that's important to connect with people. Because the thing I didn't see going out there in the naked survival on TV was the amount of people from ages 5 to 85, men and women, young and old, all kinds of backgrounds and walks of life, of them sending me thousands of messages of how I've inspired them, how I've made an impact in their life. And with just by doing what I do out there, they found some way to relate that in their life, and that's that's a blessing from God to me. And I give God thanks to all this first, my family, my wife, my 2 kids for supporting and loving me so much. They are my Achilles heel. And then the skills at the military and survival, all the training I've gone through to get me through these things. Some good news for the future. I am working on a book, several books, but it's not your normal survival book. It's going to be Tu Esponte Super Stes, which is Latin for survive by your own will, my motto, the Skull Crusher Guide to Surviving Whatever. And it's going to be basically a survival guide that I've, with some lessons learned through my life and some stories along the way about surviving different things, whether it be bullying or getting through puberty, whatever in life, school, job interviews, those things. And I think it's going to be a fun read. And, I'm right now working for a charity. If you're in Temecula, California, or in California, come April, 6th through the 9th, I'll be out there at Temecula at the Reality Rally, Represent Naked and Afraid, with 100 other reality stars, and we raise money for breast cancer. And if you want, you can go to www.realityrally2016, go to the Reality Star lineup. If you can, please donate a few dollars under my name, help me raise more money for this great cause. It is amazing what just a cup of coffee price, a $5 cup of coffee, how much that money helps somebody with this fight against this terrible disease.
EJ, thank you. Awesome. Have a great day.
One last great piece of news. I've just been brought in for Dual Survival, so look for me to be on Dual Survival. I'll be joining the cast here very soon.
We'll look forward to that show. Thank you so much for joining us. You guys have a great day.
KFXR, Dallas, Fort Worth. Talk Radio 1190. An iHeartRadio station.